When we think of a career in law enforcement, we almost universally categorize it as a traditional, working-class public service job. The public perception is straightforward: a dangerous, blue-collar position that offers a modest, middle-class salary in exchange for protecting the community. If you check the public job postings for almost any major city, the stated base salaries seem completely normal, ranging from $55,000 to $85,000 a year. But if you look past the job boards and pull the actual city payroll data, you'll discover a shocking financial secret. In municipalities across the nation, police officers are routinely the highest paid public employees on the entire city ledger. We are talking about rank-and-file patrolmen, sergeants, and lieutenants, routinely out-earning the city's mayor, the fire chief, and elite corporate managers. In major metropolises, hundreds of officers are clearing $250,000 annually, with top earners pushing past $400,000 a year in total compensation. How is it possible for a job with an $80,000 base salary to yield a $400,000 payout? The answer lies in an incredibly complex union-protected web of compounding incentives, specialized stipends, and a massive self-sustaining overtime loop that almost nobody in the general public talks about. Today, we are conducting an unvarnished financial audit on modern law enforcement compensation. We will strip away the basic entry-level pay charts, expose the built-in contract bonuses, dive deep into the lucrative world of private detail pay, and break down the ultimate financial prize, pension spiking. Let's find out how the blue line became a gold mine. To understand the real economics of a police officer's paycheck, you have to realize that the advertised base salary is merely the baseline. Through decades of powerful collective bargaining, police union contracts are packed with an array of automatic, stacking incentives that inflate an officer's income before they even work a single minute of overtime. Let's look at a standard metropolitan police contract. Right off the bat, you have stipends. Officers frequently receive separate cash payouts just for clothing and uniform maintenance. Then come the shift differentials, extra hourly pay simply for working afternoon or night shifts. If an officer works a weekend or a holiday, an automatic premium multiplier is slapped onto their baseline rate. Then, we encounter specialty and certification pays. An officer can stack extra percentages onto their salary simply by obtaining certifications. Are you bilingual? That's an extra 2 to 5% bonus. Are you part of a specialized unit like K9, SWAT, or field training? That's another structural bump. Even carrying a specific type of hazardous equipment or holding an associate's degree can unlock permanent, recurring cash incentives. But one of the biggest hidden drivers is the educational incentive. In various states, programs like the famous Quinn Bill structurally reward officers for higher education. A law enforcement officer who earns a bachelor's or master's degree in criminal justice can see an automatic, permanent 20 to 25% increase to their base pay. This completely changes the math. An officer with 10 years of experience, a college degree, and a couple of specialized certifications can easily turn a standard $78,000 advertised base salary into an actual adjusted base of $110,000 to $120,000 before a single minute of extra work is factored in. The base is a mirage. The incentives are the reality. Once the adjusted base salary is locked in, we enter the true economic powerhouse of law enforcement wealth, the overtime and private detail engine. This is where public service pay scales completely merge into hyper-profitable capitalism. Police departments operate under severe structural labor dynamics because cities must maintain minimum staffing levels 24/7. Any officer filling a vacant shift instantly unlocks time and a half or double time pay. But the real gold mine comes from mandatory court dates. If an officer writes a ticket or makes an arrest on their shift, they are often legally required to testify in court on their day off. Union contracts often dictate that a court appearance guarantees a 4-hour or 8-hour minimum payout at the overtime rate, even if the officer only stays for 15 minutes. Then comes the massive world of private details, or off-duty work. Utility companies digging up a street, construction crews blocking a lane, and private venues hosting sporting events or concerts are legally required in many jurisdictions to hire a police presence for safety. While this detail work doesn't directly drain city tax dollars because the private contractor fully reimburses the city, it routes straight into the officer's pay packet. These detail shifts regularly pay premium hourly contract rates, often featuring an automatic 4 or 8-hour minimum guarantee. An officer can sit in a heated cruiser at a construction site for 2 hours and walk away with a full day's worth of high-tier premium pay. Look at the real-world payroll audits. In cities like Boston and San Diego, top-earning officers are racking up over 2,000 to 3,000 hours of overtime and details a year. For instance, a lieutenant in Boston made headlines by collecting a $146,000 base salary, but adding a massive $221,000 in pure overtime alongside $24,000 in detail pay. When the overtime engine is fully throttled, an officer can effectively double or triple their income, completely bypassing traditional public sector caps. While the current take-home cash is extraordinary, the ultimate financial crown jewel of a career in law enforcement is deferred compensation, the defined benefit pension. In the private corporate world, the traditional pension is practically extinct, replaced by volatile employee-funded 401k accounts. But in law enforcement, the traditional pension remains fiercely protected. Most departments feature what are called 20 and out or 25 and out retirement clauses. An officer who joins the force straight out of college at age 22 can retire with a full lifetime pension by age 47. They don't have to wait until they are 65 or 67 to touch their retirement wealth. The financial value of this pension is calculated through a specific formula. It's typically based on a high percentage, often 70 to 90% of the officer's average earnings during their highest paid 3 consecutive years on the force. And this introduces a highly controversial phenomenon known as pension spiking or pension padding. Knowing that their lifetime retirement check is directly determined by their final years on the force, senior officers will aggressively maximize their hours during their final 3 years. They will volunteer for every late arrest, every grueling holiday shift, and every court appearance to drive their final gross income as high as humanly possible. If an officer spikes their final average salary to $180,000, an 80% pension guarantees them a check for $144,000 every single year for the rest of their life. To buy an annuity that pays out $144,000 a year on the private financial market, you would need a cash nest egg of over $3.5 million. This makes a senior police officer structurally wealthier in retirement than the vast majority of private sector corporate executives. Now, let's run the definitive real-world monthly calculation. Let's look at what an established mid-career metropolitan police officer actually takes home each month after navigating this multi-layered system. We start with our officer's baseline monthly base pay of $6,500. We add an automatic 25% for their education and specialty incentives, bringing in an extra $1,625. Next, we add a modest, highly realistic monthly overtime stack of court dates and shift coverage, generating $4,200. Finally, we add $1,800 in off-duty private detail pay. This brings our mid-career officer's total operational gross income to a staggering $14,125 for a single month, translating to a yearly run rate of nearly $170,000. Now, let's look at the deductions. We subtract roughly 28% for standard progressive federal, state, and local taxes, which takes away $3,955. Next, unlike private sector workers, they must make a mandatory contribution toward their guaranteed pension fund, typically around 12%, removing $1,695. Finally, we subtract $125 for union dues and dedicated legal protection funds. The final result? A clean, highly liquid post-tax personal net take-home cash flow of $8,350 every single month. This is the reality behind the law enforcement curtain. It is a career that carries profound physical danger, intense psychological stress, and high public scrutiny. But from a purely economic standpoint, it is one of the last remaining paths where an individual without an elite corporate pedigree can leverage pure human labor, strategic overtime, and union contracts into upper-class wealth and absolute retirement security. The next time you see a cruiser driving by, remember the math running behind the badge. Let me know your thoughts on police compensation structures in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and next time, we're auditing what it really costs and really pays to be a tech startup founder. Subscribe so you don't miss it.